Hi, I'm Becky Mollenkamp. I'm a feminist business coach. I help entrepreneurs who want to check out of capitalism and do business different and better. And I host a Signed Reading podcast, which you find here, where I talk about feminist essays. But I also do a lot of book reading, including nonfiction books. And I wanted to share some of those with you today. Specifically, if you are a woman who is coming to this place of recognizing that you have been in this prison of patriarchy and also wanting to find your agency inside of that prison. How do I get myself out of this prison? And I wanted to share 4 books that I think can be really, really helpful in that journey, or certainly were helpful for me. And 2 of them I have here, and 2 of them I'm going to do somehow digitally. I don't know. We'll see if I can figure that out. This is low tech. Anyway, first and foremost is Patriarchy Stress Disorder by Dr. Valerie Rein, Rein. I love this book because it puts a name to the problem. This is not you. It reminds me of like PTSD, patriarchy stress disorder, because we are suffering inside of a system that's broken. The system is the problem, and your reaction to it is normal and healthy, or at least normal inside of that. And your body's trying to protect you. In the same way, if you were to get cancer, your body reacts to that in a way to try to protect you. And what we also know is we can heal. When we can heal from it, we can heal from a disorder, and we can heal from patriarchy stress disorder. And the book puts names to that. I love it because it's self-help, but the problem with most self-help is it's entirely person focused. You are the problem. Here's how you fix you. This says, no, the system is the problem, but here's how you heal yourself inside of that and how you function differently inside of a broken system. It is a huge eye opener. I'm so grateful to Dr. Valerie Rein for creating this book. She also hosts these amazing weekends for free. It's a sales pitch for her coaching, but she gives so much for free. And I also recommend those. I've done them and I feel like it was so valuable. The next book I want to recommend is not one that I have here, but because I was an audiobook, so I'll try to put up a picture of it. It is called Radical Acceptance by Dr. Tara Brach. I think she's a doctor. I should just say by Tara Brach. And it brings these Buddhist principles into this equation of when we're living inside of broken systems, we have to learn to radically accept what is, and then we can make change from that place. The core Buddhist tenet is pain is suffering. I mean, life is suffering, right? That when we live, there will be suffering. It is inevitable. It is not avoidable. Too much of what's out there in the self-help space is sort of trying to make it feel like life can just be happy all the time if you just figure out how. And the truth is, no, life's hard. There's shit that happens. It's going to be bad. There's going to be deaths. There's going to be tragedy. There's going to be trauma. There's going to be, just even difficult circumstances. When we can learn to accept that instead of trying to change what is, expecting things to be different than they are, there's incredible power that comes from that place, from being able to say, this system is broken. It is. I'm not going to change that today. So how do I survive within the system as it is? But when we're trying to say the system shouldn't be this way, we're fighting against something that's not possible. And then often what happens is we turn that internally. What's wrong with me that I can't fix this? What's wrong with me that I can't exist inside of this? Instead of saying, I am a victim. The system does suck and I am a victim of it. And I have agency, but we need both pieces of that equation. And I think part of what allows us to get to the part of accepting the fact that we are victims of a broken system is radical acceptance. So I appreciate that book. And the next book I want to recommend is Burnout by the Nagoski sisters, Emily and Amelia Nagoski. This book is so valuable and important because when you live inside of a broken system and you have a marginalized identity, you are dealing with a lot of stressors that those who have less marginalized identities are not dealing with. Just existing is a stressor. And what this book talks about is how, as humans, we were meant to deal with stressors as they come and complete the sort of stress cycle, meaning bear chases me. I play dead. Bear sniffs, decides to walk away. Stressor is gone. I get up. And then, as you may have seen with deer that have been chased by, I'm using bear, but whatever, by a predator, they get up and they shake it off. They shake off all the stress, right? And then they're able to move on because they've completed the stress cycle. There's the threat, my reaction to the threat is removed. And then I release the stress from the threat. In modern society, we don't live that way. The threats are there all the time. They're ubiquitous. It's living inside of white supremacist patriarchal capitalism. That's a threat that never goes away. It's always there. Nonstop news cycles, social media, and all of that. The collapse, sort of, the change in structures of family family systems and then the support network that we used to have in raising children or just existing that doesn't exist anymore. All of that leads to us having this sort of reaction to stress where we builds, it reach a breaking point, we burn out, we crash, we get depressed, we can't function, and then eventually we heal, and then we start up again. So we're living on this very big peaks and valleys of stress, where what we're meant to live like is with this more sort of softer waves of stress, where we have a stress, we release it. We have a stress, we release it. Because we live in a different world where that's not possible, we need to use techniques that help us complete a stress cycle even when the stressor, like patriarchy, doesn't go away. What does that look like? Well, they offer these incredible tools inside of this book to help you with that. There's basically 7 things you can do. One of them is shaking, but there are others. And learning how to use those, how to identify the stress in our bodies, the embodied experience of stress, and then how to be with that stress and manage that stress to release it so we're not carrying it and letting it build. As you go through uncovering this disorder that we live inside of the system, you will start to feel a lot of that tension and stress in your body, and we have to know how to manage that. Relatedly, the other book I want to recommend, which I listen to so I don't have, but is My Grandmother's Hands by Becky Mollenkamp. I love this book. It is such a gift. While it's dealing specifically with racism, it applies to any oppressive system, including patriarchy and capitalism. So it's helping people who exist inside of these broken systems have a embodied somatic experience of dealing with the challenge that comes up as you start to unlearn that traumatic experience, that traumatic system, and try to show up in a new way. Both if you have a marginalized identity inside of the system, which is the obvious trauma of existing inside of a system that is designed to not only not include you, but to actually harm you, but also when you have an oppressor identity, being white, being a man, being able-bodied. When you have an oppressor identity, that there's also trauma inside of that, of the history that comes with the oppression of others. And we don't often talk about that. Very few people are talking about that piece of it. And often what that leads to then is if you have an oppressor identity, it leads to a lot of guilt and shame, defensiveness, all these other feelings, because we can't sit with the fact that, oh, this was also traumatic for me. I have pain in my body from the experience of having this lineage of oppression. How do I manage that? And this book is so great. Resma talks explicitly about that, about the embodied somatic experience of being with that stress that comes up. So burnout is great too. But what I love about My Grandmother's Hands is it's talking about these same sort of somatic embodied experiences inside of this context of these bigger systems that are broken. Burnout does as well, but not the same degree. So if you are a woman specifically, but anyone who has a marginalized identity who is coming to this place of saying, I want to step outside of this, these books are really helpful. And I'm speaking mostly to women or people who are identified as women, because that's what this book speaks to, the patriarchy stress disorder. It's what does it mean to be a woman, to be identified as or identify as a woman inside of a system that is not only not inclusive of you, but is actually harmful to you. And then the other books are about the sort of the pieces that go along with healing that. So those are my 4 recs. I would love to know what books have helped you on that journey. Share them in the comments. And then also check out Assigned Reading Podcast, because we're talking about these kinds of essays, but in a shorter, if you're not a book consumer, shorter essays that you can read in just a few minutes or an hour. And you can check out that podcast and see all the links to those essays as well.